Meeting. All right, we're beginning the special meeting. We are on here for an emergency expenditure, one that is not surprising, I think, to anyone in the room, considering the condition of the building and the roof in particular. I do expect that these types of expenditures, I think we all do, will continue to face the village as we endeavor to find a St. Paul's project with community support. It is regrettable that we have not yet heard from residents on St. Paul's sentiment, and this is an example of why we should not further delay getting the St. Paul survey out. I take my fiduciary duty to the village seriously and fully understand that those in favor of removing the building, perhaps with the vision of a new state-of-the-arts rec center or a park in its place, would find this expenditure wasteful. Not knowing how many people support a preservation project that would include this area of the building and the availability of funding makes votes like this one more difficult. I'm voting in favor of this expenditure based on the amount of money, the further damage that results from water entering the building, and the fact that there may be community support for a preservation project in the future that would be impeded by neglecting this repair. I continue to urge my fellow trustees who are working on a revised version of the St. Paul survey to leave all options in that survey and to follow the recommendations of the professionals we hired. Of particular importance is leaving the facade and demolition options in, as one of those may be the option most supported by the community, even though it may be distasteful to some preservationists and some serving on the present Board of Trustees. We're here to do what's best for the community always and should not be putting our own biases into the survey. I did want to note before we vote on this that I was surprised to see no donations have been forthcoming from the St. Paul's Conservancy. That's an organization formed back in 2003 as an IRS-recognized 501c3 charitable organization whose mission is to reduce the capital and maintenance costs of the St. Paul's campus, and I'm basing that on a letter last year to the Garden City News. I did advise one of their board members, who's also a co-chair on our new advisory committee, of the need for urgent repairs. If there are any other groups favoring preservation, raising funds to assist in saving the building, they should contact me, the village administrator, or the village clerk so we can follow the procedures for accepting donations. It goes without saying that the best way an organization can support a St. Paul's project is by donating funds to help minimize the impact on taxpayers, as is typically done by a conservancy. So I just wanted to make that short statement before getting to the item on the agenda, which is the approval of the emergency repairs. I don't know if we need to add any detail.
Yes, but we do.
Yeah, the first question is, why are we here? I mean, this is a $20,000 item of which we routinely authorize those that are, normally Mr. Baroni, for either a sewer project or anything else that it is an emergency. So I still haven't figured out why this has to be a meeting where all of us have to come to Village Hall. And more importantly, the statement with regard to funds is inconsistent with your statement that you want to have others put into the survey, either facade or demolition. Why would anybody want to pay money into a project in which you want to have either facade or demolition? I think that the statement that you've made is basically in furtherance of your agenda. It is not in the best interest of the village. It is clear, at least in my position, that the other 6 trustees do not share your position with regard to that. I believe that it has been made clear that the survey will be coming out shortly. So to that extent, I'm not sure why we're here.
All right, so it was advice of counsel that we should be here for an expenditure such as this one. So I'm not sure why that surprises you.
Because there was no email out saying as a result of advice of counsel that we should be here. I mean, if all it was is an invoice that went around that the building required a repair. No email went out, at least to me, that this meeting required an advice of counsel. So if you got information and decided to keep it from the board, I don't understand why.
It was a reply all that I thought it was appropriate to hold a public meeting, especially considering the fact that we're talking about the St. Paul's building. And we did have a public opinion poll last year where, nearly 40% of the people who came voted to demolish the building. So I do
So you're
think,
saying
I'm
is,
sorry, I'm in the middle of
Yeah.
a sentence, Bruce. I know you'd like to spar with me over this. I put my statement, I think this is the appropriate thing to do. It's the transparent thing to do, to spend money, whether it's 20,000 or 200,000 on a building that is so much right now at the center of debate in the village and efforts to move forward. And there's been a lot of distrust to start doing any expenditures without the public knowing about it, I think would be highly inappropriate.
Mayor, if I might just have a moment here, I'm thinking that it's, at least to me, very unfortunate that you have taken this opportunity to again reiterate your strong disappointment in the timing of the survey and of the various other factors that have led us here. That's not why we're here. We're not here to make political statements. We're here to very judiciously and quickly address a situation that was uncovered approximately 2 weeks ago by our staff and others. And I am in favor of this expenditure, and we will vote on that shortly. I think to also put the Conservancy front and center here is a cheap shot. There are a myriad of reasons why it may not be appropriate for any citizen at this point to donate money. This is our 30-year cross to bear, so to speak, 30 plus years. We have endeavored in a very significant and serious way over the last year and a half to do so. There was a moment where we could have turned left or turned right on the survey. You were wishing for right. We went left. This really has nothing to do with any issue. And I respect those that voted, the 38% who voted to take the building down, but that's not the direction that we are going. And everyone will have an opportunity to tell us what they think about the building and where the future should be. So I move that after a couple other comments, and I feel like others might want to jump in here, we should vote immediately in passing this minor, yet no expenditure is really minor, but minor expenditure to ensure that the building is in a condition that makes it safe and available for us to do what the citizens and the residents will vote on, we hope very shortly.
I just, if you could avoid putting words in my mouth that were not there. My statement was not expressing disappointment. It was pointing out there is urgency. That's pointing it out to the community who many probably don't realize. We notice this as quickly as we can, but when they hear there was an expenditure on the roof of St. Paul's, I fully expect that people will talk about that, and some will be unhappy that we're spending money on St. Paul's because they feel like they went out and voted and it's not in line with what they want. So I think that you really misquoted me. You're trying to make this a battle that it's not. I did point out what I've said before. Please, I'm urging you to keep it open to all. And that's just, I did include that, but otherwise, I think this is a message. I saw this coming. I think we all did, right? There are going to be problems with the roof. There are going to be more expensive repairs needed in the future. So we cannot delay. Now is the time to hear from residents and to have a plan, because these votes are very difficult when we don't have a plan. And that's just where we are. We don't have a plan and we haven't heard from residents. This is not a personal attack. I worked for months with people up here on the survey. I recognize how difficult it's been and how hard we've been working. My message was, it's urgent. We need to move forward and we need to listen to residents.
So just to add a couple of things from my perspective. One, I think it's totally fine to have this meeting. I think the St. Paul's emotion and expenditure behind that emotion is not going to go away. So I'm fine. We could do it quickly. We could get this approved and we could move forward. We didn't, so I'm fine with that. I'll leave that there. On the flip side, that's what this meeting was about. And the statement that was read to then delve into other things that aren't what this meeting is about and use this meeting as an opportunity to once again rehash a perspective that isn't the topic of the meeting and start to talk about the opinion poll, which, we could all discuss that, to start to talk about, where the money should come from, all these other things. I felt insulted by. And quite frankly, I am in total support, as I said, of your objective to have this in the public and vote on these dollars in the public. But that statement just blew me away in the degree to which it was inappropriate and unnecessary for this meeting.
Sorry you feel that way. I think it's
It's true.
appropriate, and I like to be candid, and that's what it
It's
was.
not appropriate. Right. We're supposed to be on topic and you're making something that's apolitical, political. And this is an expenditure. We do $20,000, $40,000, $100,000 expenditures that I sign every week. And this is a $19,000 expenditure. And we don't really need to have this meeting.
I'm
and-
sorry, but we vote on all of those. We debated at
No, we
length
don't. We don't
the
vote on all of
carpet
them.
for the library.
Yeah, and I voted that down.
So,
So, but
this
it's,
is government and it's open.
well, I think your comments were unnecessary. We should just be voting on what the business at hand is.
Okay, guys, I want to throw in my 2 cents as well. It's the great thing about an open forum. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and they should be respected, even though I certainly disagree with some of those earlier comments. But again, everybody's entitled to their views and their opinions. I think we should all respect them, even though we disagree with them. I do disagree that that opening statement could have been said at a different time. But again, Mary, that's your prerogative. When it comes to the building, I've been there a lot over the last 3 or 4 months trying to just making sure we get all the professionals we need over there, working with Giuseppe and helping him with some things in the building as well. The village has a responsibility, just like any other building in this village. The village owns St. Paul's. The residents own St. Paul's. And we have a responsibility as a board and the mayor for all our buildings to take care of them until such a time we find a use for any of our buildings. Not just allow what happened in St. Paul's, what happened in the Toll House, and what happens in multiple other buildings in this village, where there has been a neglect in regards to the responsibility of trustees and mayors in this village over the last 32 years, straight up, to allow some of our buildings, especially St. Paul's, to go into the disrepair that it's in for the sake of being short-sighted and fighting when it comes to politics and different views, as opposed to putting that aside like we're doing now, doing a repair that desperately needs to be done. It's a huge hole on the side of the building. Unfortunately, nobody saw it because of the angle it's at. Nobody's fault. But now that we know it's there, and Giuseppe, I saw it, you saw it, okay, we have a responsibility. You know what? It's not a little baseball-sized hole. This is a hole that's approximately 4 feet by 10 feet. An enormous amount of water is coming into this building through this hole. There's other areas in the building that there's some moisture coming into, and listen, you got to deal with that right now because it's 32 years in. But this is a gigantic hole. There are windows that should have been closed over the last bunch of years, but there's areas that are not safe to get to. So now it makes sense financially to fix a huge hole, which has to be done, which we have a responsibility to do, and close some of these windows and board some of them up. So until the residents decide what they want to do, we're doing our due diligence, and our responsibility is to not allow the deterioration of this building to continue until the residents decide what they want to do with it. It's not our choice to say, oh, let's leave some big holes and let the whole thing flood for another year or two. People have already done this for the last 32 years. And the reason why so much money has been wasted on this building is because nobody had the, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say here, but had the insight to say, let's put a great roof on this building and wait till we decide what we're going to do with the building. But at least we're keeping it watertight and we're not allowing this deterioration. If for some reason, and I think we're all in agreement tonight, that this repair badly needs to be done, irrespective of what we want to do with the building, to allow the residents to make the decisions, hopefully sometime this year. When it comes to the survey, we've worked our backsides off when it comes to this survey. I think everybody in this room has. Okay, we have some differences, but we are really, really close. And hopefully this survey is going to get to BCI in the next week or so. We can finalize it. And depending on their schedule, BCI's schedule, we can hopefully get this thing out of the residents the end of January, hopefully the latest sometime early in February. That's our goal. That's what we're shooting for right now. Again, whether we agree or disagree with what's on there, we're doing what we think is in the best interest of the residents. And then it's up to them to tell us what they want, and we'll take it from there. But we cannot allow the same neglect that's gone on in a lot of our buildings in this village to continue. And under my watch, for sure, in the construction world, I feel like I have a responsibility, and so does the rest of the board, to make sure that we put a stop to allowing our buildings all over the village to allow them to deteriorate to the point where they cost us 10 times more money in the future because we were neglectful and nobody was paying attention to what's going on. So that's my view, and I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you.
And let me
If
just
I could add
respond
just one
to-
quick thing, Ms. Mayor, this is not personal at all. This is
Oh, I
strictly.
would hope not, because this
political.
is a business meeting, Ed. It should
Absolutely.
not
No,
be
but
personal.
you mentioned the personal thing, and none of my comments, I just want to be very clear, were meant to be anything other than my opinion, and was not personal, and et cetera. Because
Right.
I felt like you just, accused me of, making this personal, but it's not.
No,
We've
you
worked
said
together
that
for-
I was,
No, I said you were political. That's all.
yes, and scolding people or something. But just to one thing that I'd like to say, as far as, and I may be the only one up here who feels any difficultness in this decision. I know it's not a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, but it's a huge part of our responsibility to decide how people's tax-paying funds get spent, and to do that responsibly. And hypothetically, if we find the majority of the community wants to demolish the building, if the building's coming down, this isn't a good use of funds. If hypothetically, it's a facade project and this area of the building that the roof is over is going to be demolished, it's not a good use of funds. So I know people up here may be coming from a different perspective. I personally am not putting my own views. I'm just telling you, I think it is important to understand the community, to listen to the community, and to make the decisions, financial decisions, in accordance with what the wishes of the taxpayers are. I explained, that's why I felt personally, I think the 1,700, how many people went out and voted for demolition, could be a little annoyed with this expenditure. And I felt that explanation was due. And for every expenditure on that building, until we have consensus as to what to do there, I will continue to feel that it's questionable. You can't just spend people's tax money on something they don't want. So if the majority doesn't want that building, we should not be sitting here and spending $20,000 to patch the roof. That is not our obligation, and that's where we differ, Vinnie. And I think once we get to the point, and the relevance of all options is because that's when we're going to learn. When we start narrowing the options, we could end up with a survey, and we're still not going to know what the residents of Garden City want at St. Paul's. And it is the village's property. It's not our property. It's not any small group's property. It was paid for with the village's money. We've spent, I think Vinnie estimated $10 million
10 million.
over the last, the time we've had this building. That was taxpayer money. And as far as a shot at the Conservancy, I did not mean it as a shot, but conservancies, if you look at the histories, they are there to raise money to help. If there's a hole in the roof, right? If they're heating, the village isn't supporting heating, there are things that would be, I think, anyone in the Conservancy or in the preservation group they would be unified on an expenditure, right? So they would all be behind, let's patch the roof, let's save the building, whatever that may be. We're sitting up here spending other people's money, and we
Mayor.
don't know what they want. So that's the tie-in with the Conservancy as far as raising that. We can't ask for money, but it was not irrelevant. We
Well,
are
I think it was
in
irrelevant
a
because.
difficult arena here where we are, and I saw this coming because it's taken a lot of time, and we know there are problems with the roof, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
I
Let-
felt
let
an
me just-
explanation
let
was.
me
You know, Vinnie, let me say one thing.
Go ahead, yeah.
1,700 was not the majority. The majority in the poll voted to restore the building. So 1,700 is a lot of people, but it was not the majority, it was the minority. And let's keep that in mind because the majority currently want us to do what it takes to look at rational decisions with regard to St. Paul's going forward. So that's the majority. Okay, the next thing, you hired Ruskin Moscow last year to basically disprove any validity to St. Paul's Conservancy. Many times when I first joined the board with you, I asked for you to speak to the St. Paul's Conservancy and you wanted nothing to do with them. So for you to come out and say, hey, where are these guys and gals with their money when you wouldn't give them the time of the day to talk about St. Paul's is just speaking out of both sides of your mouth. And I think that you really should have thought about that. And you wouldn't give, you won't give the group here any time. And for you to go and ask them for money at this point, it's just not right. It's just not the right, we don't ask for money like that. Eventually,
Okay.
if we get something done, we will.
Some serious attacks on me. So no, we don't ask for money. We're not allowed to. I just was letting them know of the need for an urgent repair. We can hope. We have relationships, friends of the library, they raise money, they contribute. We can't ask for it. But, and as far as me and the Conservancy, I spent a lot of time. I have spoken with, I don't know what you're talking about, Michelle. So as far as there came a point, there's a lot of history with I think you were talking about the former committee and the numbers, which I guess was under a Conservancy plan. And I think very publicly, I asked for the information, the documentation on that. We
Right,
don't
and
need to
then
go
I
down
asked
this
you
rabbit
to,
hole, but
no, but I asked you to meet in person with them and you refused to meet in person with them. You just wanted the numbers. I don't want to go any farther, but that's the story.
all right, well, you're telling your side of the story, Michelle, so I don't think it's so fair to say that's the story when you're speaking about me and then say we're not going any further. There was a lot of background there at that point, and we were awaiting documentation, which I'd asked many other people, and they were not forthcoming with it. So
Ms. Mayor,
Them.
could
I-
They would bring them.
suggest that we move
yeah,
to a
I
vote?
also, just to, because it's such an outrageous, accusation publicly being made about me, I will also note that Ruskin and Moscow was not hired to discredit anyone. Ruskin and Moscow was hired to investigate what financing options would be available to the village for St. Paul's, including a conservancy, a lease back, the ideas that they had been putting out there. They were not hired to discredit anyone. And it's pretty horrible that you would sit here at a public meeting and accuse me of that. So, and I believe I've said that before, and it's like you didn't hear it, and you're going to make the same false accusation against me. So,
It's not a false accusation.
I'm sorry.
I'll finish.
I'm in the middle of a sentence, thanks. So that was the reason they were hired, and you have a report with all that information and should be aware. When we were unable to get more information from the finance team at the Conservancy, I actually suggested and continued to suggest that we have a meeting with Ruskin Moscow and bring in the members of the St. Paul's. And I continue to think that's a good idea. And with the most recent advisory committee, I have suggested exactly the same thing because I know one of the things that they're tasked with, some of the members of the new advisory committees, they are trying to get more information on the Conservancy. And I told them, we have counsel who's already started this, who we can, once you get that information, let's bring it back to them and get a more final opinion. Because the problem with the advice we got is we were missing details from the Conservancy. So I continue to look to get that information, to have that dialogue, and to complete that legal research. So to say that I'm like not talking to anyone, I do want it to be done professionally, not like a conversation. I think
I'm sorry, Mary. I did offer to have you sit down with Frank McDonough and Peter Cole multiple times and you wouldn't.
I have sat with both of them.
But not
I
with
know
regard
that-
to the Conservancy, and I asked you, and you're like, Michelle, just have them bring me the papers. And I tried, and I've tried, and you refused to sit with them. I am not, that is the truth. And so let's leave it there, but that's the story. And I tried from the moment you and I were on the board together to, most I'd say in the last year, and then I just stopped.
I have spoken to both individuals. I would always, would in the future. I'd just like to know what it is, that missing information, so that it's a constructive meeting. So,
Should we move to a vote?
I
I
got,
still want to comment with regard to Ruskin Moscow. I was on the board. Michelle was on the board. There was no board resolution. There was no letter of engagement with regard to Ruskin Moscow. I was never provided with the information, nor was I invited to any of the meetings that were held. If you review the invoices that were submitted by Ruskin Moscow, it is clear that action was taken of which 2 of the trustees were excluded. So with regard to the purpose of Ruskin Moscow, it is clear that by exclusion of 2 of the trustees, there was an agenda. And with regard to your continued comment that 40% of the individuals want demolition on the survey, may I make a note that on the time that you were elected mayor and trustee Courtney was not, there was a 48 to 60% difference. At no time did you suggest that because the 40% of the individuals voted for Courtney, that she should be mayor 3 days a week and you be mayor for 4 days a week. There was an election. Somebody won. There was a vote. Somebody won. So this whole idea of bringing up again and again the 60-40, guess what? We have elections all the time. We have choices all the time. We get to move forward. And as you and I well know, if you got the rule of 5, which you had for a long period of time, you control the agenda. If you don't, we move on.
so thank you actually for raising something else that I think I should clarify that was stated earlier by Michelle. As far as the 60% voting for preservation, and I don't want, that's constantly said, I think it is, from the very beginning, right afterwards, and I was actually warned, like, they're gonna claim it's a win for preservation. I put facadism with preservation. I did it because I thought it was the right way to go to get us to the point of being able to get professionals on board to explore whether there is a solution for St. Paul's, which is what we got to. But we did not, we have 60% supported preserving part or all of the building, which includes facadism, which I know there are many preservationists who consider demolition, right? So it is not 60% voted to save the building, including the whole building, and this is clearly a necessary roof repair. So I explained why I'm voting for it, but I think it's difficult. I think everyone should pause at least as we're spending money on a building, considering there's no mandate as to what to do with the building. And there's a lot we do not know from residents, and we do not know what would garner the most support.
I think that we should move to a vote, but also just cite the good work of our team headed by Giuseppe. And I know Vin has been over at the building quite a lot. So it was great that we discovered that, and we're addressing it in a fashion that is very interesting.
so let me finish up there, Ed, a couple of simple points. We spent approximately, and this is just approximately $10 million on St. Paul's since we bought it 32 years ago. Again, these are approximate, these are not firm, but they're somewhere in that averages. To basically do patchwork on a building for the last, between all different fees, $10 million. So to me, I've been here for, I think, about 8 months now, have the privilege of been on the board of trustees. This is my first time where I've sat and said, hey, we should spend a little bit of money for different reasons on St. Paul's. It's $20,000. And again, I'm saying it one more time. We still have a responsibility, and Mary, to some degree, you're correct. If we were someday, you know what, in the future, St. Paul's wasn't around one day, hypothetically, yeah, $20,000 would be a waste. But if you look at it the other way, then we've wasted $10 million as well on top of the $20,000. Okay, but at this stage of the game, we don't know what the residents wants, and until the residents tell us specifically what they want, we have a responsibility that if we see major issues that are going to create a lot more money in the future, which has happened in the last 32 years, we should absolutely do what we're doing right now, and we're going to do it hopefully, and put this through, get the roof repaired, this big hole repaired, fix the windows, and then move forward from there. I also personally, in 2012, with about 30 plus volunteers, spent either 1 or 2 weekends at St. Paul's, donating our time and effort, and a great Mr. Caliban and Mrs. Caliban donated a few dollars back then as well to help with the cost of the materials. Two amazing people in the village. Again, so when it comes to volunteers, I know what it's like to volunteer at St. Paul's personally. You know what, and try to again, you know, do my little part as a resident, you know, to help, you know, at least keep the building intact until we figure out what we're going to do with it. That was 2012. So I'm talking from experience. When I talking about repairing, we did an enormous amount of roof work on those 2 weekends, and an amazing amount of people from outside this village gave up their time to do that. Why? Just they wanted to just do their little part. And after that, we're going to find out this year, for once and for all, please God, what the majority of the residents wants to do with this building for once and for all, and we can move forward and not have to have these debates anymore after 32 years. Thank you.
So, and just to the point of my being off topic or irrelevant, I don't think the survey is, as Vinnie stated, we do not know what people want. And I know you're working, I'm not hearing from anyone, and I think you might be coming with something in January. And I just wanted to urge you, and again, reiterate what I've said before as far as the importance of keeping it broad. So we really know, so we don't do a survey to every home and we still don't know, which could happen. All right, so do we have a motion to approve the emergency roof and window repairs to the St. Paul's building? All in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimously passes. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Now, should we just, but before we do that? And everyone's, yeah, it's a good question, but I know that the two folks that are absent due to, you know, important personal matters, Bruce Chester and Jessica Ty, I think they both, just for the record, are in favor of this too, just in case.
We
there's
don't
any-
normally have to do that,
I
but
know, but these are tricky things. These are tricky
So-
things, and I just thought it would be good to say that.
it wasn't set for citizen comments. We already voted, but if there's someone in the room or on Zoom who wanted to make a comment, I'm not going to. We only have 2 people in the room, and I think 1 on Zoom. So if anyone wanted to say something, they may. No. Okay, so
Jeanette McLaughlin, Manor Road. The survey topic has come up throughout this conversation. And I understand the Board of Trustees has their own advisory committee for St. Paul's of many experts. And my request is, I understand the want for a survey, but I truly believe, and I've said it many times, people have to be educated before they fill out a survey. This is an important decision. It's important information that keeps getting repeated. But when you're asked to make comments on facadism and et cetera, all a multitude of questions, I believe our obligation is to educate and get that information out about what it means, and then people will have what they need to know to make an informed decision when they're completing a survey. So that's my comment. Thank you. Happy
Yeah.
New Year.
Thank you.
Welcome.
sure, just state your name and address.
Yes, Julie Strahill, 32 Chestnut Street in Garden City. I want to commend the board for a unanimous decision to do what I think is the right thing, which is to maintain the building. I think Vinnie's comments were exactly on point, that we need to keep going with it and keep good care of it until we know exactly what we're going to do with it. Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
All right.